ओम सर्वधर्मस्थापकस्त्वं सर्वधर्मस्वरूपकः आचार्याणां महाचार्यो रामकृष्णाय ते नमः. We are studying Sri Ramakrishna, the Great Master, fifth part, Master in Divine Mood and Narendranath, and we have finished the first chapter. But there was a song at the end of that chapter. And yesterday we did not have time enough to read it. So before taking the second chapter, let me read out that song. And the context of the song is, when Thakur began to dance, everybody surrounded Thakur and began to dance. And the first song which Chiranjeev Sharma sang was Make Me Inebriated, O Mother. And that has been in the previous chapter, previous section. It has been given in full. Now, here, after that song, on the full moon of finishing this song, Chiranjeev commenced singing next song. The full moon of divine love has risen in the firmament of consciousness. So this I will read in Bengali and then the English translation. Chidakashe holo purna premo chandrodaya re. Then akhar are there, additional, added by the singers. Jai Dayamay, Jai Dayamay, Jai Dayamay. Uthalilo prema sindhu ki anandamay. Aha, charidike jhalmal. Kore bhakta grahadal. Bhakta sange, bhakta sakha, Leela rasamaya hari. Swarger duyal kuli, ananda lahari tuli, Navavidan Vasanta Samirana. Why? Navavidan has come. Kiva chute tahe manda manda, Leela rasa prema ganda, Grane yogi vrunda, yoga nande matta hoy. Bhavasindhu jale, vidhana kamale, anandamayi viraje. Kiva aveshe akul, bhakta alikul, पिए सुधा भाव मचे. देख देखो मायर प्रसन्न वदन, भुवन मोहन विस्तरी मत. विस्त विनोदन, चित्त विनोदन, सॉरी. देखो देखो मायर प्रसन्न वदन, भुवन मोहन चित्त विनोदन, पदतले दले दले साधुगण, नाचे गाय प्रेमे होया मगन. किंवा अपरूप हा मरी मरी जुडाइलो प्राण दर्शन करी प्रेमदासे बोले सबे पाये धरी प्राप्त भाई मायर गाओ भाई मायर जन्म मायर की जय गाओ भाई मायर जय हे it is in English. The full moon of divine love has risen in the firmament of consciousness. Victory to the merciful one. Behold the sea of the divine love, swollen high, oh the bliss of it. The devotees like stars glitter around Hari, the playful one and friend of the devotees. So all devotion has entered there. Opening the door of heaven, the vernal breeze of the new dispensation blows and raises waves of bliss. Vernal means Vasanta Ritu. The sweet smell of the nectar of divine love spreads rapidly around and makes the yogis inebriated with the bliss of holy contemplation. In the shoreless sea of the world is dancing the lotus of the dispensation, on which sits gleefully the blissful mother. So mother also has come, Hari also has come, and dispensation also. The bees, the devotees, overwhelmed with spiritual emotions, drink the nectar of that lotus. Lo, there is the mother's gracious, world-charming face, so pleasing to the devotees' minds. And merged in love, holy men in companies dance and sing at her feet. Oh, the beauty of it! Life has become cool and refreshed on seeing all this. Holding the feet of all, Premadas beseeches everyone to sing victory to Mother. Premadas is the pen name of the poet. So this is the song. And then we read that. Let me read that comment. The Kirtan over, the master sat down and said to Chiranjeev, when I heard that song of yours for the first time, I saw rising such a living large full moon, ever so big, and would enter into ecstasy as soon as it was sung ever afterwards. First time he saw, and afterwards anybody sings it, he used to enter samadhi. Now we come to the second chapter. The beginning of the arrival of the master's devotees previously seen in vision. You have seen that. Thakur had seen in vision those who would come to him. And they started coming. And who came first? Brahmananda Swami. So, Brahman Swami, about a little we describe here. Of course, it has a lot of background. Two householder devotees came first. Ramchandra Datta and Manmohan Mitra. And they could not realize Thakur in full because lack of renunciation. But to a great extent they went. And through Manmohan's sister was married to Rakhal. And through them, Manmohan's family, Rakhal came first. Now the background is, we have seen influence on Brahma Samaj. And Thakur used to be very happy with them, that also I have seen. But there was something wanting. Thakur saw that they cannot receive him. So he hankered after his own devotees. That is the background. And Thakur learned something from them. How a man is able to receive and how a man is unable to receive. That Thakur saw. So we start. The master also learned something from the Brahma Samaj. People say, Avatar, but in his Manush Leela, a teacher learns a lot when he starts teaching. How to teach, at least. He may be B.Ed. M.Ed. But when he actually starts teaching, he learns. So, like that, Thakur learned. We have already told the reader how the Brahma leaders like Acharya Keshav Chandra, Vijay Krishna, Pratap Chandra, Shivnath, Chiranjeev, Amritlal, one more name he has added here, Gaur Govinda, and others were greatly benefited by the Master, and observing in him the glorious ideals of devotion to one's faith and the total renunciation of one's all for the realization of God. These two things. Devotion to one's own faith and total renunciation of one's all for the realization of God. Sarvasva Tyag. There is a Marathi saint's line, for the friendship of God, you have to give up everything. All those who are near and dear to you. And in the end, you have to renounce yourself to get it. Now the question arises, did the master, already possessing the immediate knowledge of Brahman, Nirvikal Samadhi, and established in Bhagamu, 1 or 2 steps lower, universal mind, learn anything from his contact with Keshav and other Brahmas? So already has been described Sarvajna, and then said, did he learn anything? Many of the devotees of Sri Ramakrishna will not at all hesitate to say no to this in reply. But the law of give and take is seen always to exist everywhere in the world. Even when we go to teach a very ignorant and feeble boy, we in turn learn many things, such as the mode of teaching best suited to an intellect like his. What boy? Ignorant and feeble boy. Mind is not in steadiness. The degree to which the past impressions of such a mind help or hinder the understanding of the subject. The process of removing the hindrances, and so on and so forth. So on and so forth, some more things like that. The process of removing the hindrances. It is therefore not reasonable to say that the master learned nothing when he came in contact with the Brahma Samaj, established on the basis of Western ideas and ideas. Our impression, therefore, is quite different. We say the master himself learned much when he tried to impart to the Brahma society and church his own knowledge and spiritual experiences. Society and church, they have used 2 words. Society means people associated with that, and church means that sampradaya. When he tried to impart his own knowledge and spiritual experiences obtained through his extraordinary sadhana, it is therefore proper to discuss a little of the things he learned as a result of that contact. That will lead to a master's craving for his own devotees. Because somebody has to receive that truth and then give to the world. Acharyanam Mahacharya. So the Acharyas he want. He came to know how far the influence of the Western ideas and ideals had changed the outlook on life of the people of India in general. The mind itself changes, the outlook of life it changes totally. Before he came in contact with the Brahmos, the master was living his life far from the influence of the Western ideas and ideals. He saw all people who came to him up to that time, with the exception of Mathura. Nath, he was Western educated. making efforts to guide their lives after the ancient ideals of performing actions that are beneficial to society as well as to themselves. That is the idea. Indian society is built upon this principle. If the Brahmins, who are preponderant in Sattva Guna, do puja, study and all that, that will be beneficial to them and that will be beneficial to the society. If the Kshatriyas protect the Brahmins, then that will be useful to them and to the society. If Vaishyas earn money, then that will be useful to them and to the society. If Shudras serve society manually, that will be useful to them and to the society. That is how the Indian society is built up. Or of realizing immortality through total renunciation of all possessions and desires, that is the Indian ideal. Total renunciation of all possessions and desires, which was the eternal immutable ideal of India. The idea is that is Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra and then Sannyasi. That is how it is. Although he saw Mathuranath educated in the Western manner, possessing a nature different from that of others, he had no opportunity to study and understand that the life of everyone of this country, so educated, was thus colored with an ideal that was contradictory to the ancient one. Total opposite. No idea of God realization. What is called? Enlightened self-interest. You know this word? If you struggle to gain some money, you cannot gain that much. If 5 people together you open a society, you will earn money. So that is called enlightened self-interest. Self-interest is there, but you have the knowledge that in company it becomes better. That is what is called corporate culture now, which is coming to India. For the nature of Madhuranath changed in a short time on account of his holy company. So there was no occasion for him to study the new situation. Coming in contact with the Brahmas, however, he saw that although they were making efforts to realize God, they had deviated from the ancient national idea of renunciation. His mind, therefore, engaged itself in finding out its cause, why they are deviated. It was thus that he became acquainted for the first time with the mass of exotic ideas entering into the lives of people of India because of Western education and training. So, this is not India. How they are like this? Through Western education. Viparit Bhavrashi. Here, exotic ideas. Viparit Bhavrashi. They would not accept the direct experience of the seers of India without comparing them with the teaching of Western scholars. So their standard has become Western scholars. The master, it seems, thought at first that when Keshav and other Brahmas became acquainted with the living religious ideas realized directly by him, they would even unreservedly accept them in a short time. But days followed one another, and he found that, in spite of their coming in close contact with him, they could not get rid of the influence of Western education and place perfect faith in his direct spiritual experience. He found that obstruction. At the root of the obstruction, Western education. And that continues today. His direct spiritual experience. So he came to understand that the Western ideas had struck their roots deep into the nature of young India. That the thinkers and scholars of the West had come to occupy the place of their gurus and would continue to occupy it for a long time. They are the gurus. Long time to come, and that without comparing the direct spiritual experiences of the ancient seers of India with the ideas of those scholars, the Indian disciples of the latter, Western gurus, would never accept them as true and beneficial to them and to society. This was why, immediately after giving instruction to them, the master used to say, I have said whatever came to my mind, you accept what portions suit you. Or in his own phraseology, minus the head and tail. It is needless to say that whatever ideas and experiences of the master they accepted, they did so only because he gave them absolute freedom to pick and choose. If he would have tried to force, they would not accept. That is another thing of the Western education. I am free to do what I like. Knowing that it happened by the will of the mother, the master remained unperturbed. A very big point. This is the current of history. You can shout, oh, but this is the current of history. So one does not become restless. One will try to remedy it full strength. But one knows that this is the course of history. This has happened with the will of God. And another point is that there are some good points in the Western mode. Analytical, buddhi and all that. So that has to be taken. And this is what has happened. But the master, the consolidated incarnation of the ideas and ideals of the seers of this country, consolidated. That means combined edition of all the previous incarnations. Was not at all disturbed by this attitude of theirs. For he had felt in his heart of hearts that the will of the Universal Mother was the only cause of all kinds of events taking place in the world, and that no event could ever influence a person who was possessed of her command and was habituated to guiding himself under all circumstances accordingly. No event could ever influence a person like Thakur, who was possessed of her own command and was habituated to guiding himself under all circumstances. Maya, the divine power, capable of making the impossible possible. That is the definition of Maya. Aghatana Ghatana Patiyasi. Not only capable, expert in, had revealed to him her own real nature, explained it to him, and endowed him forever with an inviolable, unchangeable peace. The master therefore could perfectly comprehend that it was only owing to the Divine Mother's will that Western ideas and ideals had entered India, and that by her will alone had the Brahmos and other educated communities become mere toys in their hands. So how could he be annoyed at that weakness of theirs, or withhold from them his infinite love and affection? So in respect of them, his love and affection is infinite. He therefore remained free from anxiety and thought, let them accept as much of the immediate knowledge of the seers as is possible for them. The Mother of the Universe will bring forward in future such persons as will fully accept that knowledge. What did the Master did when he found the Brahmas unable to accept the knowledge of Brahman in its entirety? Although he said that there is a path. Again, although he found that the Brahmas could not accept everything he said, he did not give them a partial picture of his spiritual experience. He told fully, and then used to say, take as much as you can. You always told them without reserve all the hidden truths of the spiritual world, namely, the blessed vision of God will had, never be had unless one renounces one's all for Him. Till then, vision will not come. God is transcendent. All the faiths are true paths to the realization of God. Second one. At the end of each path, the worshipper becomes identified with the worship. Advaita or last path. Any path. That is Thakur's special. To see that one's words agree fully with one's thoughts is the most important sadhana. Man mukh hai. This is the sadhana. These few principles, still more. The path leading to him is to discriminate the real from the unreal, to be free from all desires, and to perform all worldly duties with full faith and reliance on God. So, discriminate real and real, real and unreal. To be, he's stealing master masha and householder who has children, that always you must practice this discrimination. To be free from all desires and to perform all worldly duties with full faith and reliance on God. So long as you're in the world, you're doing duties. But that should be full faith and devotion to God, reliance on God, and so on and so forth. So the main principles of Thakur Sampradaya is quoted here. Specialities of Thakur. Let us revise them. The blessed vision of God will never be had unless one renounces one's all for Him. I'll number it. All faiths are paths to the realization of God. At the end of each path, the worshipper becomes identified with the worshipped. To see that one's words agree fully with one's thought is the most important sadhana. The path leading to him is to discriminate the real from the unreal, to be free from all desires, and to perform all worldly duties with full faith and reliance in God. 5 principles he has quoted and then said, and so on and so on. He explained to Keshav and some others that it was never possible to be completely unattached to the body and experience higher truths of these two things. There is no comma here. It was never possible to be completely unattached to the body and experience higher truths of the spiritual world unless continence was practiced with body, mind, and speech. Importance of brahmacharya. Till then, you cannot be anasakta toward the body. And experience higher truths of the spiritual world unless continence was practiced with body, mind, and speech. As a result of which they made efforts to observe it. So the Brahmas did make effort to observe it. When, however, he found that they were unable to grasp his words fully, even after repeated explanations, he came to the conclusion that once the past impressions became deep-rooted, it was almost impossible to make one imbibe new ideas. Almost impossible, that means some cases it is possible. That the effort was as futile as to teach a parrot to repeat Radha Krishna when once the ring of color had appeared around his neck. You know this kanta? Parrot is taught when he is a small kid. At a particular biological growth, there is a kanta. Then you cannot teach anything. So if they are stuck up in lower things, you cannot teach higher things. But small boy, school boy, who are not married, who have no idea of sexual life. If you teach them, they will grasp easily. He understood that those persons in whom the desire to enjoy the world has taken deep root, whether due to the influence of Western materialism or otherwise, normally, would never be able to accept the eternal ideas of renunciation preached by this country, far less to carry them out into practice. That is why he burst into an eternal prayer. Bring here, Mother, your all-renouncing devotees, with whom I am to have the joy of talking about thee without any reserve. Therefore, it will not be unreasonable for us to say that as a result of this observation, the conviction grew in him that it was only the minds of boys, unspoiled by deep-seated impressions, that would fully grasp and accept his ideas and ideals without hesitation and go boldly forward to realize the truths contained in them. What is necessary? Boldness. To give up anything requires boldness. The minds of the people of Calcutta were attracted toward the master through the Brahmo. That is the main thing. Ram and Manomohan came and took refuge in the master. Anyway, it did not take the general public of Calcutta long to observe how far the Brahmo leaders accepted the master's new spiritual ideas and what changes were brought about in them. Public is observing. Again, when Keshav and other persons began to publish in the Brahmo periodical some account of the extraordinary nature of his spiritual views and his ambrosial words, directly publishing his words and his samadhi, the people of Calcutta were much attracted towards him and began to pour into Dakshineshwar. Because the Brahmas, there is a joke. Villagers come to Calcutta and they go to a hotel. So he gives them something which they have never heard of. And he says it's very fine. They ask, Babus have eaten it. If Babus have eaten, then it will be a good thing we will also eat. So Keshav says so. Brahma leader says so. So there has to be some truth. It is in this way that the master's marked devotees came gradually to the Kali temple there. The two householder devotees of the master, Ramachandra Datta and Manomohan Mitra, we were told, read about him in the periodical conducted by Keshav and came to him at about the end of 1879, about 4 years after the master's first meeting with Keshav. It took so much time. Everything requires time. Ramchandra Datta has himself told us through some details in his book Sri Ramakrishna Paramahansa Devar Jivan Vrittanta. What a great revolution gradually took place in their lives on account of their good fortune in coming in contact with him. Revolution in their life. We need not repeat them here. That is already available in the book. We need not repeat here. But the gist it brings out, because we are not reading that book here. It will be enough to say here that although unable to accept fully the master's ideal of the total initiation of lust and God or the realization of God, they covered a pretty long distance on the path of renunciation under the influence of their devotion to and faith in Him. So they have more devotion and faith in Him. So they try to change themselves and unable to change fully, full renunciation. But they proceeded along on that path. It, the intensity, now explaining how to understand this. The intensity of the devotion and faith of a householder devotee can, to a great extent, not fully, but to a great extent, ascertained by noticing his unstinted expenditure of hard-earned money in a good cause. That was explained in Mathur's connection. Putting the master at first in the place of his guru and then in that of his chosen ideal. So first they accepted Thakur as the best teacher. And then they slowly that he is nothing but God. So their issue. I told you, without understanding God fully, but he is God. Ramchandra invited him and his devotees again and again to his house at the Shimla quarter of Calcutta. Actually, the name is Shimulia. And spent money so unstintedly during festivals on those occasions that one could fathom easily the depth of his faith and devotion. The master said about him from time to time, so that is our final authority. You now see Ram so splendidly generous, but his miserliness when he first came beggars description. I asked him to bring some cardamom, and one day he brought a pice worth of it, placed it before me and bowed down. Guess from it what a great change has come over Ram's nature. There is one more adjective, I knew that. One pice does not tell us everything. এলা চানিতে বলিয়াছিলাম, তাহাতে একদিন এক পয়সার শুকনো এলাচ আনিয়া সম্মুখে রাখিয়া প্রণাম করিল। In one pice what will I? One dry elach. I think that is important. One pice does not explain everything. A dry cardamom. A wonderful vision of the master, Rakhal. It cannot be expressed in words how blessed Ram and Manamohan felt themselves to be when the master's grace fell on them and they were accepted and given eternal refuge at his feet, all fear being dispelled from them forever. Abhaya Pradhan. They know we are saved. It was beyond their wildest dream that such a refuge could be ever found in the world because he is avatar. So was it a matter of surprise that they should now try to make their relatives and friends seek the same refuge? They brought gradually their own families and other relatives to the master's lotus feet at Dakshineshwar within a year of their meeting with him. One by one, from the last quarter of Bengali year 1287 or AD 1881. How to find AD from Bengali year? Simple formula you remember. Add 600, subtract 6. That's all. Sometimes you'll have to subtract 7. That is when the Bengali New Year starts. Up to April, you have to subtract. No, after April, you have to subtract 7. Then the Bengali New Year will increase. Here they are subtracted 6. Of these, Swami Brahmananda, well known in the order of Sri Ramakrishna, was the first to come to the Master. In his pre-monastic days, his name was Rakhal Chandra. What is Rakhal? Those who protect cows. Is Rakhal. Rakhal means cowman. Before Rakhal came, I had seen in a vision that the mother of the universe suddenly had brought a boy and placing him on my lap said, "He is your son." I started in terror to hear it and said, "How is that? How can I have a son?" She smiled and explained, that is Thakur's continence, absolutely. She smiled and explained, "He is not a son in the ordinary worldly sense of the term, but you are all renouncing spiritual son." Thus assured, I was consoled. Rakhal came immediately after I had had the vision, and I recognized him at once as the boy, that boy. The boyish nature of Rakhal. That means he was about 18 years old, but he behaved as if he is a 2 years or 3 years child. On another occasion, the master said to us about Sri Rakhal, in those days, Rakhal had the nature of a child of 3 or 4, so to say. He looked upon me exactly as his mother. Now, two things here. What? Thakur is a male body, but Rakhal sees me as mother. And Rakhal is a young man, married, but he feels himself to be young. So the relation with God is not a physical thing. One sentence will not in English. Next. One clause is dropped. He would come running at short intervals and joyfully sit on my lap without any hesitation. Something more is there. You know that? থাকিত সহসা দৌড়ি আসিয়া ক্রোড়ে বসিয়া পড়িত এবং মনের আনন্দে নিঃসংকোচে স্তনপান করিত. Those who do not read Bengali, read English, it is my duty to tell them what it is. Because it may offend English-knowing people, it has not been added. You understood? He used to sit on Thakur's lap and suckle at his breast because Thakur is mother. What he got from it, you have to ask Rakamai. He might be getting what we do, you know. He would not move a step from here, let alone going home. I was importunate and induced him to go home now and then, lest his father would disallow his coming here. So gradually, that is Thakur's style. His father was a zamindar. In English, they have put zamindar itself. Landlord, big landlord. Immensely rich, but equally miserly. He tried at first in various ways to prevent his son from coming. Later, when he found that many rich and learned men visited this place, he did not object to his son's coming here. On some occasions, he came here only to meet his son. For the sake of Rakhal, I was all attention to him and he was very pleased. That's a good state. Obstructions have to be removed. Rakhal's wife. But never was any objection raised against his coming here by his father-in-law's family. For Manamohan's mother, wife, and sister or used to visit this place very often. It has been described that Manohan is breaking all his relatives. So, closest relatives are mother, wife, and sister. Manohan's mother came with his girl wife. She was a child like. I was anxious that his wife should stand in the way of his devotion to God and had her brought to me. I want to see her, whether she is Avidya Shakti or Vidya Shakti. I observed her physical features from head to foot, minutely. Through that, Thakur could know everything and became convinced that there was no cause for fear. Representing the auspicious aspect of the divine Shakti, Vidya Shakti. Mangal Shakti, auspicious occasion. Shiva Shakti, Devi Shakti. Devi Shakti, yes. Thakur's usual terminology Vidya Shakti was, but here he said Devi Shakti. She would never be an obstacle on the path of her husband to her husband's realization of God. Then I was pleased and sent word to the noble, that is to Holy Mother, asking her to present the daughter-in-law a rupee and see her veiled face. That was the tradition. Veil is opened and 1 rupee is presented to them. How Rakhal would lose his boyishness. It is impossible to describe what the childlike rapture that overcame Rakhal was like. Whenever he was in my company, he simply lost himself. Everyone who saw him then was wonderstruck. Inspired with spiritual fervor, I also used to feed him with thickened milk and butter and played with him to cheer him. On many occasions, I lifted him up to my shoulders. Even that did not produce an iota of hesitation in his mind. But then and there I said, should he grow up and live in the company of his wife, then this childlike nature of his will vanish. If he has sex experience, then the childlike nature will not. The master scolded Rakha because as a child some defects are there. I also scolded him when he did something wrong. One day he was very hungry and took butter, the prasad brought from the Kali temple, with his own hand and ate it. I said, how greedy! You took with your own hand and ate the butter instead of controlling greed, which you ought to have learned from here. You should have learned from Thakur that greed is to be controlled. He shrank into himself from fear and never did so again. One scolding was enough. Jealousy in Rakhal's mind and the master's misgiving. Jealousy of a child. Rakhal then had a child jealousy too. It was quite unbearable for him. If I loved anyone but him, he would feel wounded at heart. At that I felt greatly perturbed lest he should harm himself by being jealous of those whom mother would bring here. And what was the solution brought by mother? Rakhal went to Vrindavan, and at that time many disciples came to Thakur. So that is mother's arrangement. Rakhal went to Vrindavan. 3 years after he came here, Rakhal fell ill and went to Vrindavan with Balaram. had a vision a little before that, as if mother was going to remove him from here. At this I eagerly prayed, Mother, he is a mere boy, quite ignorant. That is why he sometimes feels picked. If for the sake of thy work thou removest him from here for some time, keep him in a good place and in a blissful mood. He went to Vrindavan shortly afterwards. So Thakur himself had arranged that. Thakur prayed to mother to remove him for some time and keep him good health and come back. The master's apprehension on hearing on Rakal's hill. So in Vrindavan he fell ill and he is from that place. I cannot express how very anxious I was when I was told that Rakhal was ill at Vrindavan. Her mother had shown me before that Rakhal was in truth a cowherd boy of Braja. Braja, you understand that whole area of Mathura, Vrindavan, etc. If one goes to the place from where one came to assume my body, one very often remembers one's past life and gives up the body. That was why I was afraid that he might pass away at Vrindavan. So I eagerly prayed to Mother, and she comforted me with an assurance. Mother has thus shown me many things about Rakhal. He has seen many things about Rakhal. Many of those things I am forbidden to express. If Rakhal comes to know his nature, he will give up their body there itself. Now there is a footnote here. I am not reading the footnotes by the translator or publisher. It is Saradananda Swamiji's footnote that I am reading. Though the master did not say all the things mentioned above at one and the same time, we have arranged them all here for the sake of convenience. Saradananda Swami style, connected things together. The later life of Rakhal. There are no limits to the things said on various occasions by the master about this first boy devotee. Whatever mother showed the master about him has proved true to the latter. He became classed with the sadhakas noted for their gravity and serenity as they advanced in age. Gambhir, Shanta, not that boy. And renounced his all for the realization of God, capable. The boy has now come to occupy the highest position in the order of Sri Ramakrishna, spared till now by the will of the master. Swami Brahmananda is doing immense good to humanity. Thinking therefore that more things about him should not be said now, we stop here. He should not know his nature. And that is why Vivekananda has come in great detail. Because Vivekananda had passed away. Swami Vivekananda came to the master 3 or 4 months after Swami Brahmananda had come to the Dakshineshwar for the first time. We shall now address ourselves to the narration of the incidents connected with his life. Should we enter next chapter? No. No, yes or no? No, okay. Because 5-6 minutes are still there. Om Sarvadharma Stapakastam Sarvadharma Swarupaka Acharyana Acharyo Ramakrishnaya Te Namaha Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.